Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Wednesday. It's October 13th. This will be our chart lesson for today. And once again, I thought I'd show you the daily chart. It's still interesting. You can see we're still trading in this yellow range, and you can see the resistance is the previous resistance high, and we're bouncing off the midline here. One positive is we did close up today instead of down. We've been starting off trading up and then selling off by the end of the day. So at least we did trade down today. That's a positive for us. So we'll see how this continues to shake out. We may get a close outside this trend line, followed by a move to a new lower. We could just reverse out of here. But as of today, we're still in this range, and I would say there's still a downward bias here. So we'll see what happens. But there is some buying coming in at this level, and they're continuing to keep it up. It looks like we're trying to make a higher low here. Haven't been able to do it yet, but we'll see how it kind of shakes out here. So, but that's a look at the daily. I still have these targets down here. If for some reason this thing was to reverse out of here and we don't reach these targets, to me that probably means that we're going to rally. So we'll see what happens. But as of today, we're still in a downtrend. We're still in a range, and I'd be careful buying this market. Obviously, if you get a buy during the daily, you can take it. I'm sorry, during the intraday chart, because I think there's one or two even today, but or a few, maybe there's a few today. I can't remember yet. I have to wait till we pull the chart up. But just be careful if you're trading the dailies, buying anything. I don't see any reason to be thinking buys yet, longer term. Obviously, during the day, on a range day, you're going to get some buy opportunities, but longer term, I don't see any reason to think about buying this yet. So anyway, let's flip over to the other chart and go through the trades. Okay, here's a look at our daily chart. You can see we were in this range early on. This is the blue. Late in the day, we had this trend channel working up. Okay, I'm sorry. I've had 100 interruptions today. I'm never going to get this video done. I finally locked my door and shut it and locked it, and hopefully nobody else bothers me today. But anyway, you can see we did have this channel late in the day, but I really played these shorter term channels until we got this bounce here, and then it's almost 2 o'clock anyway. So I don't know that this one helps you. Yeah, other than maybe this bounce off the EMA, but I still wouldn't be brave enough to trade that. At this point, you might have actually moved this up to right here. As you can see, it fits a little bit better across there at that point, so the range just kind of changed as the day continued. So that's how I saw the day. But again, I don't know that this helps you here. And I honestly didn't really pay much attention to it till we bounced here again, and then we bounced this second time here. Then, hey, I'm really paying attention to this channel. But prior to that, I was really thinking range and playing these shorter term trends and things. So we'll leave it on there. But that's just kind of showing you how I saw it. Again, I saw it without that. I mean, I put it on here early, but when we pushed on through it there, I didn't pay much attention to it until we came back to it again in the afternoon. And also, this kind of throws you too, because originally I had it more. I think I originally had it here, and then I expanded it. And then when we shot on through, I just kind of didn't pay much attention to it. But then when we came back and bounced there again, then you got to say, hey, something's going on there. So I do believe there is a channel there. But I think the range was the dominant. I think they were just fighting each other really into 230, and then of course the range still seems to be playing out up here now. Of course, we may not sustain this break higher, but as of now, that's kind of how I'm seeing it. So, but let's zoom in and talk about the trades and wrap this day up. Okay, 7 o'clock hour comes right into this move up here, and we make this pullback. It's just so much sideways. You would still think that hey, maybe we're going to make a new high here, but you actually had a failure here. I think 7 o'clock comes right there, and you might consider going short there because it is a failed second entry long. There's a little bit of room, but we're still looking for a new high here, and then it comes back, and it's such a huge bar. I don't see any reason. There's actually I think a news item that came out right in there. There's somebody speaking or something. I don't pay much attention to these. The only ones I really pay attention to is the FOMC announcement. Even these minutes here that come along at 1 o'clock, I don't pay too much attention to these. If you come over here at 1 o'clock, that may be what this spike was right here, those minute notes being announced. But generally they don't make a whole lot of difference. You can see the price action still played out. So I don't pay much attention to those. This one you might, it's not like the FOMC, uh, the main announcement where they announce the rate hikes or whatever. So it's a little bit different than that. This is just when they release some of the minutes, and it takes a while to work through that stuff. So I don't know if this had anything to do with that spike, because generally this doesn't really affect the market. If I click on the right thing here, that happened. Well, that was right at 1 o'clock, so maybe there's something in there. I don't know. Maybe they said something as they were releasing them. I'm not sure. So maybe that is a news driven. It looks a little bit like it, but it looked like it was a little bit early. So I'm not sure. But generally, I don't pay those much attention. I didn't mean to do what I just did there. So anyway, I don't see a trade right in here that I really feel that good about. But you can see we drop down and then we try to go higher here and make a lower high. Generally, I would say the reason this one's green is because generally I would say you'd want this to get back to the EMA. We're a little bit far away, but this has been kind of chopping around, and we break out and pull back and test it. And this channel is still in play. You can see we haven't been able to close outside it. That's a really bearish bar, so you may take that trade. Because there's a chance we're going to push lower there. I'm not crazy about it, but I marked it just because it is off the key entry point, and it's just a long way for a lower high, which is really all you can call that. So I just think it probably trapped some longs there, and I kind of liked it for that reason. So, but anyway, we drop on down, then we bounce. There's a reversal or a failed second entry short here, but that's too congested. It's below the EMA. I don't really like that trade. It rockets up, but a lot of times it'll break out of there and turn back down on you. So you got to be real careful with that one. Somebody actually asked about a short here. You can see on my chart we've already had a close and a new low, and then how congested that looks. I just don't see any trade there at all. I don't see a long or a short. If you took a short, you got trapped, but I don't like the trap enough to try to go long because it could break higher just a tick and turn back down there. So I don't like going short there. You can see how that all stacks up on my chart. And we've already had the break and new low. So anything could happen here. It's just hard to know what's going to happen there, and it actually goes higher. We come back, we get a close outside, and we just there's actually a second entry long right here, but that's an inside bar and a doji. Can't go long there. We finally make a couple legs up to a new high, so that's a second entry short right there. So I like that one to the short side. Again, a lot of times you'd want to wait on a lower high here just for some more, just to be certain that this moves over, but you don't get it. The bottom just kind of drops out, and then you get a first entry and a second entry, and so that's the third touch of this trend line. Normally I'd want this failure to be way up here, but if it turns down there, I guarantee you, especially after that bullish bar, they've got people trapped. And you can see how quickly that drops. That's a nice trade. That's probably the trade of the day at this point. And you get an easy runner there. You run on down, you get your first break. Technically, that's a second entry. By the count, that's a second entry, but that looks like congestion with one leg up, so I'm not crazy about it. Um, it is a fairly bearish bar, so if you took that one, it's being a little aggressive in my opinion. So there's no break in new high or anything of that little move or that small trend up. So you can see there's reason to be concerned about that one. I marked it green. But if you wait just a minute, you get a first entry and then a second entry. So you get a failed second entry long, but you also get a first entry, second entry short. Nice bearish bar. And then a few minutes later, you get a failed second entry long. This one is really close to this support, but this was a bearish move. So we're going to probably at least make a new low. And I just couldn't see it with that trap right there, making one or two ticks. So you could almost argue for that one to be, make it a little bigger. You could almost argue with that for that one to be green, but when it tries to go higher that many times and fails, it gives you that big bearish bar. I'm really surprised it didn't tick lower already, but you can see it drops on down relatively strongly, and then of course it bounces down here. The original low was right in here, but it goes a little further, and then you make a new low, and then you make a higher low here. I marked this green because it's such a bullish reversal type bar. If it breaks higher, it's probably going higher here, being that far away from the EMA. But there's not any given support here. Obviously, there is some support here, but it went a little lower. So I think you're gambling a little bit there. So I just made it green. And of course, we bounce again here. But this doesn't look like rejection. It's not taking off. But finally, it does run up, and you get a first entry and then a second entry, and you also get a first entry and a second entry long. So it's a failed second entry short that bounces off the EMA, and it broke lower first, and when it broke higher right there, it's also a second entry long. I like going long one tick above that bar, and you could even still go long one tick above that one, as long as you got room to get out before here, which you do. You come back, you get another first entry, second entry. And again, I didn't mark this one because you've already had a break in a new high, and you've actually got a little trend channel working lower there. And that's the first break higher. And you see it does attempt to go lower. It doesn't make a new low, but a lot of times it will. And so that's what you got to be worried about, or actually it breaks higher right there. This was actually your signal bar, and this was actually the entry bar. So which you would have entered on, but you're all still in, everything's still inside that channel, and this actually makes the first push out, and then you can see it tries to go lower again, and that's I mean, you barely would have survived this trade, and it could have broken lower. So I don't like it. You get another first entry, second entry, too congested. There's actually a failure here, but I just felt that was too congested. And if you wait just a minute, you could actually look at this as like a first entry, second entry, because then it looks more like two legs down. It's such a big bearish bar. I like going short there. And at this point, again, I'm not too concerned about this because I'm really looking at this as a range. But if this was right into this trend line and didn't have room to scalp out, I'd probably say skip it just to be safe. But it turns out it gets more than enough, and then I'm kind of throwing this trend line out for at this point. It bounces strong, but I don't see any reason to go long there either. So this is one that just goes without you because you get no setup really for it. You might could say, hey, we're way away from the EMA and you're looking to ride it back to that, but you're not, there's no way to assume that we're going higher like that here. But if you wait a minute, you get first entry, second entry, and a really small bar here. I mean, it's like 5 ticks, very low risk. It easily gets the scalp, but then it pushes lower again. So kind of hard to read that. Actually, the way I was reading this one was we already had a break and a new low on a second entry, but that wasn't good enough. They took it down one more time before it went higher. I don't see a reason to go long here. There is a higher low right here after the 2 legs down to a new low after the break in 2 legs. So that's one you might consider. So you could argue for that to at least be green. It's a nice signal bar. There's just not a lot of room to scalp out there on that move. Obviously, there's plenty to here, so you take that into consideration too. So you might argue for that to be green. You see it doesn't go far before it backs up again. And now we're just chopping around. It's really hard to know what prices are doing here. We do make a new swing low, so a first entry, second entry. So that's a failed second entry long and a really nice bullish signal bar, but it's right into this resistance here. And you see it fails momentarily before it takes off again, and it really doesn't give you a good setup. It's too congested here. So once again, it doesn't give us a good setup and takes off. Runs straight up to the high. This trend channel is still in place, so you don't want to be going short here yet. We kind of run back and bounce. That technically is a second entry long, but I wouldn't want to risk going long here right into that resistance. Works out great. Of course, maybe that's the news item. Not sure if there was something said or whatever, but it quickly turns into a failed breakout, and you get this lower high right back. Plenty of room back to the EMA, even plenty of room back to the previous resistance. So I like going short there. And actually, I think I had this. Actually, I think I had this lower originally, so this was actually well above that line. I think we already talked about that, but anyway, it pushes on through, pulls back, and gives you a failed second entry long too. So when it actually, the failure is right there, but your stop has to go above this bar. This is your signal bar. So, but your failure is right there, and that's another quick move that's probably good for a couple of points or so there. Bounces, and it gives you another failure right here, but it's right into that resistance again, so you just can't go long there, and you see it quickly fails and turns down. But I don't really like going short there either. I think you want a reversal, which comes right here, so I don't have any problem actually going short right there. Your safety stop goes one tick above that bar, and you enter one tick down here. And again, it takes it a minute to take off, but it drops on down. So when it bounces right here off that line again, it's like, It actually bounces twice, but when it comes back here and gives you a failure on a failed second entry short, I like going long when this thing breaks above this bar here. Got plenty of room back up here. And you can see what happens. It just ends up fighting between that resistance and this support. And that's what causes wedges and stuff. That's the reason I don't believe in wedges. There's no such thing as wedges. All they are is patterns that are fighting each other. You got a trend line working up through here that prices are respecting, but you're still respecting this resistance, and it looks like what they call a pennant or something. I got all these weird names for all these patterns, and people will tell you trade it the way it breaks out, but usually it'd be just the opposite. So we broke out of here. My guess is it'll probably fail and come back down in here somewhere sometime. This is an overnight, so it could work a little different. That probably wouldn't rally so much if it wasn't during the overnight where the volume's a little thin. So, but anyway, I like that trade, and that takes you into 2 o'clock. I don't see anything else. There is another second entry long right here off this trend line, but it's too bearish a bar, and it fails anyway. I don't think you want to go short there yet. You do have what looks like an overshoot, so maybe that late in the day, it is a failure. It is below the EMA, so that's another one you could argue to be green. But I don't see anything else I like there. So anyway, that's what I saw today. Just another range day, really. We're still in that range, that daily chart range, that yellow range. We'll just go back and look at it again. You can see we're trading right into that. We broke out momentarily, but it's failing. Doesn't mean it won't continue to go higher during the overnight. But right now, it can't get outside that trend line or the resistance of that yellow range there. So we'll see what tomorrow brings, what the overnight brings. But so far, we're still in this downtrend and this range to the side, this sideways range here. So far, this has been a failed breakout. But anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow. Tomorrow's Thursday, so that'll wrap up our week. No chart lessons on Fridays. But I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.